Hey, everybody, welcome to the show. So it's great to see all of you again. And thank you very much for joining us. It's an early stream than what we usually do. So I hope that's okay. And maybe we'll catch a few new flies with this honey coming in at an earlier time slot than what typically we offer. But I see we already got, the gems in the chat. One of the most standout ones we have is El Hombre, who always appreciates, a good uh, a good festive song to get things started. So, thanks, El Hombre. Appreciate the compliments. But yeah, today we have the Saints from Allegiance Arts that we'll be talking about. And we're going to be having the author on, Mike Barron, later on for a little interview. So that should start at 8 p.m. Eastern. And we wanted to get the stream out early and make sure that we could have all of that scheduled and available for everybody to enjoy. We like coupling the creator with the work, and it's a nice way to complement, the product that's offered to make sure that we get a full range of perspectives, not just from audiences, fans, but also the creator themselves, and have a chance for the people who just read the book and gave their impressions to give more insightful discussion and thoughtful questions when they're joining us on the stream. So hope you enjoy all of that. It's I think it's a unique offering. I don't see it done on any other review show, and it's something that we're proud to be doing here. So thank you again very much for being here. With that, let's jump into the chat and say hello to everybody. We've got Jay Dalla, who's just realizing that this is a stream, and he's trapped in it, so nowhere to go, unfortunately. We have Everybody Loves Cthulhu. Haven't watched a review in a while. Well, so you're one of the flies that we caught with this early start time, so welcome. So I wonder if Well Read is good, quote, nowadays, quote unquote. But at least it has Matt C on. Yes, we've got Matt C here, so look forward to that. And yeah, I'm good. I'm very good. I'm always good. So thank you very much for asking me. We've got Jack Stafford, Ahoy Ninjas and Ninja Lloyds. Yeah, a stream that isn't in the middle of the night. So I'm glad you're looking forward to that. And I hope you enjoy it, Jack. We have Wilberforce. He says, greetings. And of course, I already mentioned the impeccable and distinguished El Hombre. So thank you very much, good sir, for being here. We do appreciate it. And who else do we have joining us? Late, once again, from Alasmat, well-read streams. And once again, I am behind the wheel. This is like, yeah, this is a dangerous combination. So I don't recommend you continue this, Alasmat. I'm hoping that you have like a Tesla that just drives for you, because there's no way that you're staying up while driving and listening to this stream. So be careful out there. Oh no, Well Read is speaking. Tends to happen. So occasionally. Georgina Floyd, do you like bologna sandwiches? Well Read. I do like some bologna, but usually I go to the Italian deli. I won't pick up the stuff from the grocery store. I'm picky about my meats, so I have a very exquisite palate when it comes to the cold cuts. So yeah, nothing but fresh cut from the Italian deli for me. But thank you. Oh, somebody else. We've got Keely Chow. Hey, thank you for being here, Keely. Always nice to see a new face, and welcome. So with that, let's bring on tonight's panelists, and I guess get to the review. So what do you think? We've got joining us tonight, Moonshine.
Good evening, Carrot.
Good evening, Crunch Crunch. And we've got Matt C.
Hey guys, how y'all doing? Glad to be here.
Thanks. Quickly, Matt, so you've got a new campaign that you're promoting. It's for, do you want to spoil it for everyone?
Yeah, it's Kyrie Book 3, the much anticipated third entry in the Kyrie saga. So I've been working on it for all of this year, and it's ready. It's pretty much ready to go to print. I just need a couple more months on it. I want to bring everyone in. So that's that's up on Indiegogo now.
Yeah. So check it out, everybody. Curie Book 3 from Matt Krantz. Robbers in the House
He
of 100.
just pronounced it for you, and you still got it wrong.
No, there isn't a wrong. So long as you know how to find it on Indiegogo, there's really not a wrong way.
Yeah, my feelings are hurt, mainly because I mispronounced the name of the book. So say it again, Matt. My apologies.
Well, Kyrie is how I say it, but the whole point is that it's more memorable if everyone fights over how to say it. So, either way, I'm winning.
Is the title based on something, or did you just make up the name?
Yeah, it's Greek for it's part of a phrase, "Lord have mercy." So it's about different competing lords in Hellenistic North Africa in the 3rd century. So.
Elambre asks Kyrie, isn't that a Marillion song?
It's a Mr. song, and they pronounce it right too. But
Let's see. Kyrie, yes. So it's going to be debated for the ages.
Yeah, and you remember it. That's the point. So.
Absolutely. Already funded, almost 200%, almost 4K, and 88 backers. So everybody, don't miss out on your chance to get Kyrie. You could also get all 3 books if you get the appropriate perk for that. Check out some pages here. This is the main protagonist, Kyrie.
And this is you doing everything again, like the first 2, right?
Yep, back to basics. There were some I had a lot of fun with Wild Tales, but some of the feedback I got was, you get excited and then you bring in all your friends to draw a bunch of stories, and I think it kind of it muddies the IP, I guess, on some level. I don't know. I'm still trying to figure that out, but I think people do appreciate it if you do everything by yourself. So.
It says wild in the title, so people were forewarned.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah. I tried to be upfront about that, but
some amazing colors here. Nice red soldiers. And
thank you.
Big demon monster. Groping a little, getting a little camel action there. So
yeah, I might redraw that now that I put it up. Just a little squeeze from the back.
No, he's hurting the camel. It's fine.
It makes you ask questions, which is the point.
150 pages, so that's always good. Tons of story, and perks. So a coin, a marker portrait. I believe you also offer portraits to people who want to back at that tier. You have commissions open here.
Yeah, that's there's an 8x10 that I'll draw for you, or you could get the epic edition. You get a 4x6 of one of the characters that in a simpler style, but yeah, both are original art.
Cool. I have to say I like those magnets. It's like I can use magnets, or at least throw them on my refrigerator.
Yeah, I figure it's reusable stickers, and it's like Final Fantasy VI type sprites,
yeah.
But
very nice.
Georgina Floyd is now explaining Kyrie eleison. Okay, that now I know this word. Yeah.
Kyrie eleison. Okay, down the road that I must travel, Kyrie eleison through the darkness of the night.
And Elambre has given us a history lesson about how it is used.
Okay. Clearly, we've been talking about this for too long. The chat has gone off into nerd.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, you could. Everyone check out Elambre's Wikipedia entry. It's 100% correct.
A Sega Genesis style mailing box. Very nice.
Mm-hmm.
Matthew Fowler probably approve of that.
And cheaper shipping because you're getting discounts on your rates, apparently.
From Critical Blast.
Nice.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So what is the basic tier price? We kind of skipped through that.
Well, you get all 3 books that, you get an epic edition, which has everything, all the perks and the book for $59. PDF only $10. So
Red is happy about that.
Yeah, no excuse not to grab that. You could also get Wild Tales for $15, or just the book for 20.
Okay, that's what I wanted to see. And how long is the book? Is it in the description?
150 pages.
Okay.
Yep. Every Kyrie entry is $20. I've been able to commit to that, and then you get $5 off when you get them as a group. So
Which
And
8 out of 10. So if you want all 3, you better hurry before they're gone. Apparently.
yeah, I'm already speaking. I got a friend who is a retailer, and I'm already buying his overstock on book 2s just so I can add a few more to that. But we're basically sold out of book 2s.
Do you think
So-
you're ever going to reprint them, or?
The book 4, I'm kind of tumbling to the finish line. So like when I finish the story with book 4, that's going to be, I can get you like the leather bound everything all together, or just the book 4. And that's when I guess people will get book 2, is when it's just in a big, thick, Bigfoot build style.
So that'll
book.
be 800 pages.
Yeah, maybe 600. Yeah, I don't know how I'm going to do it. It's probably going to have a slipcase or something,
Or be a slipcase and multiple volumes in the slipcase.
Yeah, or something. Yeah, I don't
Because
know.
otherwise, unless it's like rice paper, it's going to be a thick book.
Yeah, it may be impossible to print. We'll just have to see. So come in and enjoy the ride, and we'll see if I can actually physically deliver on the 4th one.
And back hard, because the second stretch goal is a catapult. And we do need this catapult.
Is it a catapult or is it trebuchet?
Trebuchet.
Yeah, I think trebuchet was copyrighted, so I had to go with catapult.
Oh, you had to go with catapult, huh?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't see the counterweight, so it might be a catapult only.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Twitless did point out the other night that the counterweight is necessary.
Yeah, so then I think it's like springs and such makes it a catapult.
Mm-hmm. And that's what this is. So
Yep.
Cool. All right, everybody, go and grab your copy of Kyrie 3 while they're still available. All right, so a little bit of a sidebar, and we've got to stay on schedule. Let's jump into the book we're discussing tonight, which is going to be The Saints, an Allegiance art release. It was crowdfunded, so here is that campaign.
Yeah, I don't think you could ever get it in Walmart. It may have been on their website. I don't remember, but
Was it offered in stores?
I don't think so.
yeah, I think this was part of their early 2021 like re-entry into crowdfunding.
Yeah.
And this was like a standalone, as you can. Yeah, it wasn't part of that bundle, multiple offer thing like they've done for previous books.
I mean, I think it was planned to go into Walmart, but I don't know if it ever made it there. So
Yeah.
A world-renowned archaeologist falls down the rabbit hole and into the crosshairs of dangerous foes. So it's an interesting Indiana Jones style setup.
it's kind of like, yeah, Geralt was Indiana Jones. At least that's what he looks like. It actually, the character himself isn't very militaristic, at least thus far. But that's kind of what the cover is giving you a hint of.
It's a very nice cover. 405 backers and $21,000 raised. Let's see.
And the interior artist did draw that cover. So
Oh, that's nice. Several nice covers
I
here.
don't know about that one. It looks like the same style, though.
Yeah.
Well, unfortunately, okay, so 52,000. Oh, sorry.
52,000. Wow.
Sorry, I'm having two thoughts at once. Sorry about that. 52,000 pages, everybody. Get this while you can. $20. 52 pages of pulse-pounding adventure. And the creators are Red Rooster, The Futurist, and Nora's Saga. And what actually struck me about this is that it was written by Mike Barron, who's a veteran writer. And
well, yeah, Mike Barron and Patrick Stiles did some of the writing as well. I don't know if what is what, but they're co-credited as writers.
And it's a brainchild of Patrick Stiles and Mitch Breitweiser.
Yes.
So, would we like to get into a little bit of how the story is set up? So, it's an action adventure. Do we get dropped into it immediately, or do we have a chance to be introduced to the main protagonist first with some backstory?
Yeah, we get about the first 4-ish pages are the globe-trekking, debonair archaeologist turned adventurer character with the top knot, who I guess he's like a social media influencer and drinks beer for
Essentially TikTok or Twitter.
Yeah.
It's just a made up name they use, but that's effectively it. He's kind of almost like a playboy too. So.
Yeah.
And how does he end up actually falling into this circumstance where he's now globetrotting for action and adventure?
He gets the call. He gets the cell phone call as he's just about to go off to international waters to shoot machine guns with a bunch of bikini babes. He gets the call that he actually gets to be on a mission that his organization needs him for, to go to Japan to get inside a coffin.
Yeah, he is essentially Indiana Jones, but for the modern day. So that is his job. That's like what he's famous for. But he's kind of, I don't know, frowned upon by the real archaeologist, I guess.
Well, I mean, he's getting calls while hanging out with bikini babes to go off on adventure. He sounds like the archaeologist's version of Bruce Wayne, and donning his Batman persona when it's time for action.
I don't know about that, but
James Bond, maybe?
No, pretty much Indiana Jones.
Oh, okay. Well, okay, so going in the Indiana Jones vein, Indy was, I think, motivated by discovery and adventure. And what is this protagonist motivated by?
I mean, at first you may see it's pretty obvious that he just wants to make money from, his fame. Now, there's a later part of the book you can see that he's involved with things that are not public, which probably is he's more interested in knowing the truth, perhaps, than just what you see on the outside.
So he's a bit like a archaeologist mercenary, I guess. And then he has a bit of conscience about uncovering some kind of secret that he discovers.
Yeah, I mean he's a knowledgeable, and he does stay steps ahead of his antagonists. Like he's a competent mercenary, if not also a competent archaeologist. And he is paired with a traditional, like a tenured professor type female who is more straight-laced and acts as a foil to him to demonstrate, I suppose, like how outside of the boundaries of, his normal profession he's actually acting. And most of the story is kind of exploring, which we'll get into, but most of it is exploring the consequences of someone with a normal archaeology job pairing up with someone like this. So
the interesting thing is it's why we do get Jean-Luc. That's his name, right? Or is it Jean-Pierre? Jean-Marc.
Yeah,
Jean-Marc. I'm thinking of Star Trek. Jean-Marc. A lot of it's actually people talking about him. There's actually quite a bit of this book is he's not actually present. So there's just lots of various plot threads introduced, I guess you could say.
It is a little complex. It's a little
convoluted?
At this point, we could almost compare it to the futurists.
Yeah,
Which,
so go
Yeah.
finish your thought.
no, well, just one way to compare it to the futurists, and I think it's valid to do this because of the I'm turning to the front page to get the Patrick Stiles angle, and its archaeology and its globe trekking and its treasure hunting, and its allegiance arts. So I think it's fair to compare and contrast. But
Yeah,
this story's got a lot more players, and it's important to keep up with that.
Yeah,
you know?
so that's why I would say your complex is the right description, where it well read asking, is it convoluted? And no. Whereas the futurist might not have been as complex, but it was definitely convoluted because the time kept moving around. While this skips scene the scene, it pretty much moves forward in time, which greatly helps trying to figure out what all these pieces are, so you're not too confused. And usually there'll be a connecting moment or scene between panel between scenes where at one point they go to Kofu. Is that what they're called? You probably know this, man.
Yeah, the Kofun.
Yeah, which is a sacred burial of Japanese people, I guess. You might have a better idea of what precisely it's supposed to be, but it's holy, and it gets blown up, and so he escapes alive. No one knows this, but the next scene, there's this mysterious woman, but she's watching this report on him, and she gets attacked by a ninja. And if you were observant, you would have noticed that ninja was there trying to blow it up. So when it moves scene to scene, it has connecting pieces, so you can follow what's going on with all these moving parts, which I think was pretty crucial, because in the futurist, almost nothing ever connected scene to scene, so it's kind of confusing.
We're entertaining Jay Dalla quite thoroughly. Yeah. Well, so what plot device do all these different jumps serve? Even though they're interconnected linearly, are they unraveling a mystery? Are they telling stories about multiple characters? What is the tone exactly for the Saints? What kind of story is it telling?
It's essentially kind of this global conspiracy type story.
Yeah,
I guess sort of like what was that novel series?
like Da Vinci Code meets
like that
paramilitary type story, maybe like Mission Impossible.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah. And it keeps it, this is suspended right up until the end. I don't think this spoils it, but the anchor points are the different tombs that they go to. They go to a couple in this, and they discuss it a lot between those events. And there's an artifact in each of these tombs that has something to do with changing the past to control the future. That's kind of the key phrase that Mike plays with. That's kind of like the thematic phrase, which is becomes a recurring. I think that's a theme that they're going to be exploring, which is interesting.
Yeah, so it's something beyond just going to graves is going on, because somehow that phrase, they're somehow changing the past. We don't really know how they're doing it, but as we see the effects of it, we'll see medieval knights in Japan for some reason, which makes no sense. So they're trying to connect all these tombs together, even though in history they weren't connected. So we don't exactly know why they're doing it. They presumably seem to think this will save the world, this mysterious organization, which I believe is called the Forge.
Also, how does it handle tempo then, going through each one of these mysteries as it's unraveling the story? What do you think, Matt? Let's dive in there.
So this is the harshest I can get with criticism, is that you've got to like people hanging out by pools having conversations, or by tiki bars, or I don't know, hanging out in apartments having conversations. I expected maybe 60% action, maybe 40% of the conversations. it's all well drawn and well written, but I was surprised by the balance of that, and maybe that's a decision that Mike Barron made to he wanted to emphasize and maybe do 60% people having conversations in order to just kind of lay down a map of where he was going to take us, and then kind of build up from there into more and more action, I suppose. But the it's intentional, like you can tell, like this is a professional story, top to bottom. So this wouldn't be an accident that it's been weighted towards a lot of people having conversations. That's no accident, but so I trust that he's got good reasons for doing that kind of story rather than something that's even more action based. Considering the sort of covers and the promotional art that you see, I expected something that's 60% or more action. But because we didn't get that, I was a little surprised. So
he does tend to punctuate the conversation with like action or action leads to a conversation. You mentioned the pool scene, and that reminds me very much of Goldfinger, because they're just having a conversation. They're being spied on, and then of course the person spying on them gets killed. It's this sucker. So there's your bone well read. I guess that was sort of James Bond like, but not involving our main character though.
Yeah, it's the best. I mean, when I say there's a lot of conversations, I don't mean that it's the best. It's some of the best, in our circles out there in terms of, if you're gonna do it, Mike Barron knows how to do that so that it is interesting and engaging all the way through. It's just it's more than I expected, but he did it well.
The conversations aren't just, oh, we're gonna have coffee after we save the world and have a falafel or whatever it was in Avengers. It's the conversations are telling you information that's interesting. That there's what is his name? The Japanese fellow, Okami. So he's the one that blows up the tomb where John Mark is there, but he now wants to join John Mark, and we know this because the conversation is talking about both of them at the pool.
Mm-hmm.
So if you didn't know that, you might be rather confused. You might think Okami's there to kill Jean Marc because he tried, presumably, to kill him, although probably maybe they knew they wouldn't kill each other. Who knows? There is a lot of little mystery. This is like the first act of like either Indiana Jones or James Bond, if you're well read. That's why I think, like in Indiana Jones, the first act of it is quite a bit of conversation. And that's why you punctuate it with the action, which this book actually does as well. And then you got to give the information at least, but back it up with the action. So it's a mix, but the beginning's got to give you more conversation than action. Otherwise, you won't know what's going on.
Yeah. And one more point is these are never like random people having conversations, which is nice. That's what someone with less experience would do. These are always key players who actually move the plot along. So you're gonna, you'll meet like a young woman. She's talking to that Japanese man that ends up being his daughter, who's a key player, as well as the man. So
I will say I don't know who the people at the pool talking are. They just seem to know everything and presumably are working with Jean-Marc.
Oh wait, that's fair. Yeah.
Those people
There's like a big guy. There was like
there's a guy named Cohen, but I don't know who Cohen is. So that's the only time is like, who are these people?
Can't account for every person, but
Well, so it does look interesting though. Like looking at these pages, what about the art in terms of driving the story? How effectively is that sequenced?
You go first, Moonshine.
You guys are too polite to each other.
It actually seems a lot like a berserker. What's his name? Gardening, I believe. It looks a lot like that. That's what I would describe it as. It's also is this the same guy that did The Futurist? Because it looks like that too, obviously.
I don't. Christian Rosado.
Yeah.
That doesn't sound.
No.
I don't think that's the same guy. This I don't know. To me, like the art is a lot more efficient. You know what I mean? Than Futurist, which was kind of almost Baroque in its detail.
No,
Both of these, you know, it's a photo reference driven, and I don't say that critically. You know, like there's just different approaches, but it's kind of like I'm kind of picturing Christian Rosado like he's got a bunch of like buddies that he gets to like pose for this stuff, and I don't know. You can tell. I mean, it's photo reference, but it's not like ignorantly photo referenced. You know, like the guy knows how to draw. He just needs a bit of a efficient backbone, I think, to get this stuff out. So it's kind of, it has a more like a raw sense to it, where he's only drawing what he needs to, which is kind of interesting.
yeah, the drawings are, they are rather simplistic, I would say sometimes. It's not quite layout, but it's not that many more lines than a layout. I guess that's the way I would describe it. And then you have the coloring that really helps, but
Yeah. Yeah, coloring's very it's like a mood based. This is actually a lot like Futurist. There's a moody coloring approach, which is fun.
kind of like Curie.
Yeah, which I think is also, I'm looking at I don't see a colorist, so I guess that's Christian Rosado doing that too.
Yep, he's just listed as artist, so I think he did all of the art.
It looks great, though. I mean, my impression anyway, just looking at these pages here.
Yeah, I think you'd like it a lot. Yeah.
So is it an original read? How would you describe it in terms of engagement? It sounds like stories that have been told before, but never quite this way.
I would think it's original in the sense it's difficult to explain what it's like, why we're grasping at it. It's like this and that. It's because it's not that easy to describe what it is, except for just going plot point by plot point. I mean, Indiana Jones is the closest you get, but it's more mysterious rather than simple, oh, I want to steal this object sort of thing. And we only getting introduced to what the plot is about changing the past. So as it's the first issue, you're not quite certain where it's going at the end. You just have that one idea.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and there's a bit of a reveal. The last couple of pages kind of lets you know what the supervising structure is going to be, because you see an additional tomb being broken into by a different person, and you see again this device that we saw in the Kofun tomb in Japan, and a supernatural event that
essentially a mummy type monster almost, I guess. A pharaoh rises from the dead kind of thing, right?
yeah, and the device defeats the mummy in some way,
or stuns it. I think it's not like gone, but yeah, like it stuns him.
So describe to me then what you enjoyed about it. If you felt it was an original read, what things about the storytelling stood out to you especially?
This is me answering again.
Yeah, you go first.
Mainly,
Money for this.
Mainly, I would just say I always kept thinking back to the Futurist, because this is very complicated, but the storytelling is done in a way I understand it. That's what I was thinking. It's like sometimes you might have to read back if there was a character name dropped and they appear again. It's like, oh, it's that person. But it's pretty clear given all these various parts and characters constantly being introduced to you. So that was pretty well done. Except for the pool scene. I don't know who those people are.
Yeah. You know what often happens in books like these, like by less experienced folks, you'll see they'll name drop a lot of world building in order to enrich the story, which is usually doesn't actually work, and actually does confuse the reader, because it's just it's just meaningless, made up names and places. But experienced people will just they'll hook you with dialogue, so you get a sense of they're gonna get you with the relationships between these characters more than the world building, the nouns and stuff and verbs that the author made up, so that's what Mike does with this. Is I don't know who everyone is, but I know that I like how they interact, so I feel like that's how you build trust with a reader. So he does that. I had a small question for Moonshine. What do you think about the dark web?
Oh yeah, that stuck out to me. It's like I'm using almost in quotation marks and thunder, the dark web. I was like, doesn't exist, but okay, whatever.
Yeah, was that a boomerism, or was that like a smart device to let you know, like, these people keep... So basically, there's people keep opening laptops in this story like 3 different times and accessing the dark web, and each time they do it, I guess there's an audio file that plays that says you are now entering the dark web. and I guess that, I mean, it stood out, and so it did the job of letting me know maybe more than a logo or something on the screen could do, that I know that they're all entering the same website and doing the same kind of dark things. And maybe you need to do that with a dialogue box every time. It's an interesting choice.
So you think this is 4G chess by using dark web, which they know everyone will roll their eyes at. They'll know that something special is happening, and they're not just surfing the internet every time this happens.
Yeah, I'm gonna guess that was Mike's attempt at really hitting a discordant note in order to make it more memorable than it was. And maybe that was a second pass decision at the lettering stage where it wasn't quite clear enough, maybe, to some test readers. And so they had to say, maybe we need to actually have everyone has their audio up on their laptops, and it actually says you are entering the dark web every time.
Yeah, it says you are entering the dark web. There are no rules here, and then it says.
Yeah. So that happens like 3 times, and but I'm trusting, because he gives you the stuff that you do expect. When he gives you the surprising things, I think you're gonna. He's already earned you with the things that do make sense. So when you see that stuff, you just figure he's gonna pay it off in the next issue or something. Do you know what I mean? So
I will also point out that just paging through it's like there's a lot of scenes with a lot of different things happening. Like we've mentioned the talking, but there's an escape sequence. There's explosion. There's fighting monsters. There's actually quite a bit of different things happening. It's not just action, as some books like do talking action. It's like what is the action is actually quite varied, even in this 52-page book.
That's true. This book does a lot more with 52 pages than your average self-published comic. I'll say that.
Did it feel like too much of it was maybe establishing things to come in future stories, or did you feel like you got enough of a self-encapsulated story just with this one issue?
I don't think this is clearly just an introduction. If this was all it ever was, then it'd be kind of disappointing, because you're given a premise of a story but no conclusion really in any way.
Yeah, I mean, I would want, and I hope this happens in the second one. There's a lot of talk about artifacts, but there's, whenever they get into a tomb, they spend about 3 pages there. So that's like the surprise where I'm like, okay, I'm trusting, because he's giving me, Mike gives me enough in the writing, and the art is gorgeous. People having conversations by pools is very well done. I'll trust him that he's going to give me more tomb robbing and spend more time in those worlds. It's like Uncharted. You play that video game series. Like how much of those stories Those are well told tales. I think generally most people enjoy them. How much are you spending like in those environments actually uncovering you know, ancient myths and civilizations versus running around in a town or something? It's usually 2/3 of the story at least is actually in those tombs. So it's a little surprising to not get as much of that. But again, I feel like it didn't feel like an accident that we got less of that. We got more talking about the consequences of going into a tomb than being in the tomb. But that's okay because it didn't feel like he was it didn't feel like an aimless adventure. It felt like every page was intentional. So
Yeah, I would like to say that because like the Kofun, like they could have just gone there, saw the night, and it could blow up. But it's like, well, if they were going there, there's going to be protests. So we see the protest, we see the international outrage because it got blown out. I mean, there's key details that aren't really that important, but at least it makes it kind of feel like a real world when things happen and there should be consequences to them.
yeah, that's fair. Maybe that's the justification. You know, it's padding context around that archaeological adventure that maybe sets it apart from something that would make you suspend your disbelief a bit more and maybe make the consequences feel less real because they're just jumping in and blowing stuff up and it doesn't seem like anyone seems to notice or care. But this is a story where everyone seems to notice and care a lot. So
People care, Matt C.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
nothing is treated frivolously. Basically, everything is given an appropriate weight and established accordingly, so that you actually, like you said, you feel like there's consequence to the events that occur in the story.
Yeah. Even though, like, you know, typically, like the usual way you tell these stories, I think, is nobody cares what happens with these artifacts, but everybody care. Like, but people are dying a lot or something, you know. So it's the immediate, it's the human level consequences. Like everyone's being held hostage, and there is that in this story, and everyone's you know, you're watching key players get killed off, and that threatens that he almost promises that will happen in the story, but instead he gives you a lot of consequences towards breaking. You know, there's a lot of international politics just for breaking into a tomb, and people are being kidnapped, and there's assassination attempts, and there's uh, you know, Chinese SWAT teams shooting at guys in blonde top knots as they break into Himalayan mountain refuges and stuff. So it's kind of, I guess he turns up to 11 more aspects. There's I just figure adventure stories usually have an easy sell on the tomb robbing, and he decided instead to make it very difficult to rob tombs, which is surprising.
I think there isn't there even just like a conversation where he's bargaining some guy to give him a vehicle to go up into the mountains.
Yeah, like there's little moments like that. Yeah.
It's like the guy asked him, "How do you know if I come back?" It's like, "What if I hire a guy?" He's like, "Oh, I'll talk to someone." And then like when he leaves the thing, I think he says something about, "Well, too bad, guy. I'm leaving your vehicle out here."
Yeah. Yeah, like that's a good encapsulation. Like nothing is easy. And for some reason, maybe it's Indiana Jones got us spoiled on easy details where you can just say, "Oh, it's this kind of adventure," so everybody gets what they need for, you know, but everything's hard in the story. And that's a decision, you know, that's a story decision. That's and it's done well. It's just it's funny to entertain us with a story where everything is hard.
Yeah, I mean, it's. I guess that's what some people said about the Mandalorian. I think that like everything he tried to do was hard. He never got anything easy.
Yeah.
Like he crashes his ship, and he doesn't just get apart from the Jawas. He has to like do a mission for them, and he almost fails his mission. That's kind of like what's going on here. It's a little faster,
Yeah.
pace, but it's sort of like that. Like everything he wants, he has to achieve through some effort on his part. He can't just fly to Kathmandu when he's in Japan. So, well, I mean, he does fly, but once he's there, he's not just immediately in the next tomb. He has to get there, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Also, how does the story wrap up? Since you said it did feel very introductory. Are we at least given some excitement at the end, like a cliffhanger, something to draw us back for future issues?
Well, this is the thing where it's like it's conversation. Essentially, it ends with Jean-Marc teaming up with Okami, who's the guy whose daughter was kidnapped. So he will work with the Forge to stop Jean-Marc. So it's kind of, the father seems to know his daughter can take care of herself, so he's not worried about her. I think that's what the angle is, because obviously we have a scene with her escaping her, kidnapping her, and things like that.
Yeah, and we've got promises from Okami that, you know, she knows everything like he's taught her how to be, you know, an equally deadly assassin and all this stuff. And then we see that demonstrated that she can evade her captors if she needs to. But
Cider, he flies on airplanes, you know, like everyone else. That sort of flying. And yes, Jack Stafford, Kathmandu.
Yeah.
It made me actually think of the Golden Child when, like, he meets the mystic father and he, like, swindles him out of his stuff to get him something. That's what I was thinking about when he was trying to get his vehicle to go up there.
mm. Yeah.
So it sounds like it sounds like the arc told in this story is a character arc, then, with a lot of establishing plot lines for the series.
I don't know if you could say character arc, because I don't think any of the characters change. We're just introduced to the characters and the overall plot, or the problem of the plot, that they're altering the past, and this is probably going to summon lots of demon monsters, since we see a lot of demon monsters, or maybe they're trying to fight the demon monsters and going about it the wrong way. We're not quite certain. So it essentially sets up a mystery, and that if it hooks you, then that's the idea, I think, of this book.
Yeah. I wouldn't say, like, you probably don't know enough about the plot to write like a wiki on it. But you do know the character. I guess it is character driven in that you do have a sense of who these characters are, what their relationship is to each other enough to know how they're going to interact. Like, you see a lot of just characters having interesting interactions, and there's enough action to get a sense of their capabilities. So it's and then you've got those key, you know, those hook dialogue lines about what this international Illuminati order could be up to. So it does take risks, I think, and it's the art is that quality that you're seeing on the campaign. It's that quality all the way through, and it's dense. It does a lot. It could have tried to do less, you know, but it really went for something with this, and I appreciate the like the rapid style of the art. It, like, I think it feels gritty, just like the story is, and feels modern. It doesn't feel like some sort of retro appeal to tomb robbing from you know, previous iterations of this genre. It feels like it's trying to tell a story for current year with those themes in mind, or those kind of settings, but, you know, with like a SWAT team twist, I guess. And it's I think it's pretty successful.
I agree with Cthulhu.
You know that well-read is just reading his How to Review a Comic Book Guidebook for buzzwords like character arc and world building.
I like how Matt politely said, "Oh, it's character interaction." Like well-read asked that question, even though it was completely not well-read asked at all.
Wait, yeah. Well, I don't know if it did what well-read asked, but it's
No, it didn't, because there's no arc in anyone's character.
Yeah.
because they're static. We're just introduced to them in the relationships thus far.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I asked because it seemed to focus a lot on the characters.
And I'd like to point out I was exactly right. Mike Barron was going to be punctual. I knew it.
Oh, yes. Okay. So, did we have any final thoughts right before I bring Mike on? Okay.
I don't know if this would. I think crowdfunding definitely was the right path for this book, because I don't know any kid that would want to read this unless they're at least like 15 or 16 and really into archaeology, because this is definitely more geared to adults than probably any of the other Allegiance books, I'd say.
And in the art style included, I suppose.
Yeah,
Is,
and just the storytelling in general.
Okay. Well, I guess we can ask Mike what his thoughts are on that.
Yeah.
So everybody, please welcome Mike Barron to the stream. Hello.
Hey, Mike.
Hi, guys.
Hope you didn't have to suffer through that listening while not being able to respond.
Doesn't bother me.
Yeah. I mean, what did you think? You heard us talking about the writing approach you took with this story. What did we get a sense of what you were trying to establish with the story, or do you feel like we missed some points?
Well, I didn't hear that much. My goal is always to entertain. I keep that first and foremost in my thoughts. And this was a scenario that was developed by one of the editors of Allegiant, who wrote the first 14 pages, and I took it from there. However, I was very excited to work on this project because it's not superhero. I mean, there is an element of science fiction here, but it's very slight. But it is character driven, and it's about a struggle between two shadow forces. It's the kind of thing that appeals to me. Conspiracy theories. One shadow force is trying to control the future by controlling the past. And this was technology built into the story, that they have a method of mastering time travel. They can't send people back and forth in time, but they can send technology back in time, and the technology can take over a person and alter them. And of course, the other force is a dedicated group of secret archaeologists who are trying to preserve the world's great archaeological treasures before they are destroyed, like the Taliban blew up the Hindu temples in Afghanistan.
So, am I correct in saying the story itself didn't quite explain the time travel, or did I just miss it where you actually explained it?
Well, you only saw the 2 issues, guys. It's a 6-issue arc.
Yeah.
And it's all complete.
Nice.
Oh, it's complete?
I can say, yeah, it is. It will be explained.
Interesting. So is the rest of it going to be on crowdfunding, or do they have an idea?
I have no idea. I hope so. Allegiant has run into serious difficulties with their distributor. The distributor may have performed criminal acts. And to get to the bottom of it, it's going to take a big law firm and so forth. But Allegiant is looking for a way to survive, and they're trying a number of ways. And all I can say is their books are superior. I'm not just speaking of The Saints, which I enjoyed very much, but every one of their books, Bass Reeves.
Norris Saga. Yeah.
Norris Saga, The Futurist, Red Rooster. And that they deserve to succeed. And if you back crowdfunded books, I would back the Allegiant books.
Yeah, I think we're all Allegiance fans over here, so we've reviewed them, and and fans of Mitch. I think as a person and as a businessman, like, I think everyone's got, and we've expressed them ourselves, opinions about the past few years and risks they took and mistakes they've made, but integrity does seem to shine through with his ability to handle those situations, and he's come on here and he's apologized to streams of this size, to fans, to backers of we might have 30, 40 people here, and he'll be real and honest with us, and that sort of thing is worth more. That's exceedingly rare. He didn't have to
Yes,
do that,
Mitch
and
is
he
a
has.
person of the utmost integrity.
Was there any foreseeing what happened with the distributor? It seemed like a lot of those issues stem all the way back to the original signing of the contracts.
I don't know. I've asked Mitch about that, but he says he can't really comment because they do have lawyers involved. But it's a big story,
Sure.
and I don't know the details. But knowing Mitch as I do, he did nothing wrong, and they did nothing right. I think, as I said, there may have been felonies committed, and I hope that they get to the bottom of this. And I hope someday that the story will come out. He has talked about going to some aspects of the comic book press, but it may be premature to do that because he's talking with his lawyers about what they can do. And I don't want to go into any details. I just know that Allegiant is an outstanding line that deserves to succeed.
So with this story, you said this is the first 2 issues, and it's a 6-issue series in total. Has any of the other scripts, have they seen any kind of pages being drawn or inked, or what stage are they in that development process?
Gee, I don't know. I should ask. I wouldn't be surprised if the whole thing is finished. I mean, Christian Rosado is an incredible artist, also very fast. It's one of the things I like about the book is that the art style is unique. It doesn't look like any American comic, but it draws you in. It's intricate. It's exciting. He's got a style all his own. Did you show the art from the interior?
I didn't have any interior pages to show. Unfortunately, we only have physical. Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you.
Yeah,
There's the pool scene.
Yeah. We were talking a lot about that pool scene. One of the things that Moonshine and I were marking is your attention to there's a lot of dialogue scenes that you know with your experience how to make interesting and how to lead into those dialogue scenes. And we just kept referring to the pool scene because it's kind of almost iconic of like, look at a bunch of these interesting people, but it leads out from, there's an action scene before that, and then you're able to layer up from this dialogue scene with people we don't necessarily know. We're not 100% sure what's going on, but then you build up into action, and then there's key stakeholder characters who, that things happen to them just a page into that, so it's kind of interesting how you know how to take us in and out of action and in and out of dialogue.
Well,
in
thanks.
interesting,
I have to take a
surprising ways.
look. I have to reread it to remind myself what I did.
Yeah.
But I try to be terse with dialogue, and dialogue serves a couple of purposes. One, you can use it to advance the plot, but you have to be careful about that because one of the most important rules in storytelling is show, don't tell. So any information you can give to the reader visually, without using words, you should. But another purpose of dialogue is to reveal character. And I try to use both those functions, but I try to be minimalist in each one.
Yeah, I would say like there are many dialogue scenes, but there's not actually that much talking in the dialogue scenes. It's like 2 pages, maybe, 3 or 4 sentences on a page, and then you're in and out. And generally I think each time you either like mention what's going next to happen or something that will happen later, because the dialogue isn't overly done, even though we're spending a lot of time with people talking, I noticed.
Yeah, I try to write the way people actually talk. One of the ways I do that is I'll read these lines out loud to my wife or somebody and say, does this sound natural to you? And she'll say, yeah, but what does that mean?
Do you try to write different characters when you're doing dialogue, or
Absolutely, but you don't want to be heavy-handed about that. It's got to be real subtle.
Mhm.
Like if you have an Australian guy there and he says "oi" once, that's enough.
Right.
Yeah.
So where do you normally draw inspiration from for the characters that you write? Are there things that you enjoy? Um,
A writer draws inspiration from everywhere and anywhere. I have based characters on people I know, and that's perfectly fine if you want to do that, as long as it's not malicious and you change it so it's not recognizable. Uh, uh, and I'll base characters on people I've imagined. Uh, it depends on the purpose of the character. Uh, in this one, Jean Marc is a bit of a rogue and a blowhard, but way down deep, he really cares about archaeology. He's not a fraud. He's just a bit of a showman, and we all know people like that. People who highlight their profession, professional chefs, or the guy that cleans up bars, bar rescue, people like that, a real character. And one of the reasons TV chooses those people is because they're characters, and people tune in because they're intrigued by them. One of my favorite is hog hunters, or is it wild hoggers? American hoggers, American hoggers.
right.
And it's a show about a family in Texas that apparently all they do is hunt down feral hogs. That's all they do. It's a lot like Swamp People. And every episode, Swamp People's on its 8th year, but every episode is the same. The main guy says, well, there's a mean bull gator up in Creeks Hollow. We got to get him. And they go up there and they look for the gator, and the gator grabs the bait off the tree, and then they close in for the kill, and they say, don't mess around, Randy, shoot him. And they show the guy with the gun, but they never actually show him shooting the gator because there's some stupid rule against that. I always say, come on, show him shooting the gator. That's what people want to see. Of course, they ever did that. That would be the end of the show. But that's the example of the type of intriguing character that people tune in. Now, there's nobody like that in the Saints. I try to make them intriguing in their own way. Jean Marc's a bit of a blowhard, and the various members of the council behind him, they have their own little things. They're sober and mature people, but they have a sense of fun too. And the bad guys are a bit more flamboyant, as they must be.
Was it a risk choosing the character type of a blowhard as an archaeologist? Where did you find that the idea for that and how it would work in this story?
Well, that's Patrick Stiles' idea. Patrick created the character, and that was the character that he created. But it's not without precedent. I mean, you can see where he drew from real life, like Bill Nye, the science guy. He's flamboyant.
Yes.
And that accounts for part of his attraction. But he's talking science. Of course, Bill Nye is not actually a scientist.
No.
But he's very knowledgeable about what he does. And there are a lot of examples like that they choose as a spokesperson somebody who's a little larger than life and outsized. I don't know why I think of Geraldo Rivera, because when Geraldo comes on, the TV goes off. But he's one of those personalities too, except that he has no special expertise in any one area.
Right. Do you feel like characters drive the story, or do the plots drive it? Because you focus a lot on the characters, I feel like.
I believe in character-driven story. And, if you create a good character, and this always happens, at some point they will turn around and tell you what they're going to do next. And that always happens. If you're a good writer, it always happens. And it affects the story, because you can write an outline and then you get into the guts of it. But invariably, you're going to veer away from that outline as new possibilities reveal themselves. And you say, yeah, this would make the story better.
Do you ever do any kind of psychological exploration of your characters? Or are they mainly meant to be personas that would drive narrative?
Well, psychology is a part of every personality, but I like dealing in recognizable types and without pushing the envelope too far. I mean, there actually is a character in here who's a psychological extreme. And She's kind of the dragon lady. See if I can find her in here. Figure out who she is, because it's been a while since it's been at least a year since I wrote this.
She's one of the people in the Forge, right? The evil
Yes.
conspiracy group.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't think we actually even get her name, but we just kind of know who she is.
Yeah, the dragon lady. Well, she becomes very important later on, in a way you don't expect. In a way you don't expect. I think that's going to take the reader by surprise.
Oh, sorry. I'm giving the other reviewers a chance to give questions as well, but I have tons. So if it's been a year since you wrote this, what have you been working on recently? What are your most current efforts?
I wrote 2 novels. One was for a patron in Michigan who has a group called the Sea Wolves that teaches boys how to become men by teaching them how to sail. And he was thrilled with my novel. I'm excited about it too. And so last week I just returned from a 10-day road trip where I drove to Bayfield, Wisconsin to go sailing with him.
Mm-hmm.
And on the way, I stopped with to see a number of old friends. And one of them is Joe Comstock, who's a terrific artist. And in fact, his cover is going to be on the cover of Florida Man 3, the Florida Man graphic novel. And then I stopped to see Tom Delaney, he's my oldest friend, and he just quit working as an emergency physician in a hospital. He's 73, he finally retired, and he'd been there for like 20 years. And he started to tell me the stories of what went on in the hospital during the last 3 years. The more he talked, the more I realized that he was outlining a novel, and that it was so fascinating what he saw and what he remembered. So I said, well, let's write this novel, Tom. So now we're working on that. The other novel is a military science fiction novel I wrote with Major Diggs Brown, who served 2 tours of duty in Afghanistan. And Diggs did most of the writing on that. So the tactics, the statistics, the hardware, the military chain of command, the training that they go through, the dialogue, all reeks of reality, and it is real. And we're excited about that. But as I've also been working on Florida Man, we're gearing up for the second Florida Man graphic novel. We're gearing up to launch Private American next. And I sent you the covers to that.
Yep, got those here too.
Yeah, let's see those covers. Private American is very exciting, action-oriented comic in the Captain America vein. In fact, Private America is everything Captain America should be, but isn't. And that's one of the reasons I created him. It's a hot topic issue, but as always, my number one goal is to entertain. You will find this wildly entertaining. There are no speeches, there are no lectures. There's just solid drama from the first page. There isn't a wasted word. There isn't a wasted frame. And as you know, my good friend Steve Root contributed a cover. That's Richard Bonk's cover. Richard is the regular artist, and he's blazing through this book. It'll probably be finished next week. And then we're going to launch next week. And after that, we're doing Bronze Star with Pat Broderick. And this is the best work of Pat's career, and that's saying something, because Pat has always loved Westerns, and he always wanted to draw a Western. And so this is the Western to end all Westerns.
So what brought you to the point where you made the decision to come work here with these properties in the indie sphere, through crowdfunding or through working with a smaller publisher like Mitch?
I've been blacklisted by all the major publishers, as are a great number of us, including Chuck Dixon. I don't think he'd mind me mentioning that. Aaron Lopresti. So if I want to continue doing comics, I'm going to have to make my own way. Every now and then, I'll connect with a publisher who wants me to work for him, like Mitch. That's Steve Root's cover for Private American. It's part of it.
Mm-hmm. Nice.
But otherwise, I would rather work on my own characters. I think most writers would. I mean, there are guys that say, "Oh, I would kill to write Spider-Man or Superman or whatever," and hopefully they get that chance and go to town on it, and that's wonderful. But for me as a creator, I have so many ideas of my own that I want to develop that I would prefer to work on my own characters, and that includes Nexus and Badger.
So I was just going to ask, like, so you've been making more recent Nexus characters, like the triplets one, and then you had a short story in Grand Bazaar, which was
That was Richard's idea. But we have 2 graphic novels coming out next year from Dark Horse. And the first one is called Nefarious. Richard Bonk is the artist on that. And if you want to take a look at it, it's already up on Amazon.
Sure. It's Nexus from Dark Horse.
Yes.
Oh, great.
And
Yeah, that
Kelsey's-
was I think we liked your Nexus short. I think that was our favorite of the Grand Bazaar stories.
Oh, well, thank you.
Interesting.
And of course, Kelsey's committed to finishing the Triplets trilogy, because that was just the first part of the story. And there's 2 more to come. But since I locked him into this Dark Horse deal, I think he's focusing on that to get that done first. And we don't mind that, because I have so much in the pipeline that we can wait on that. As I said, first comes Private America, and then comes Bronze Star, and then comes the second Florida Man graphic novel. And then I'm working on some other stuff that I can't really comment yet, because I have any art to show for it. You know, it becomes real when the artist dives in and starts doing the pages, and then you got something to show, and you know the artist is committed. And I just have some great artists lined up. I'm very excited about this.
So I think I found it. Sorry, I'll share my screen. It was called Newspaper Strips, Volume 1. This is what was on Amazon for Nexus.
Nope, that ain't it.
Oh,
Dude published that by himself, and then Dark Horse published it too. Here, I'll send you a link to it.
okay. That'd be great. Thank you.
You know, Mike, you're kind of the ultimate freelancer in these parts, and it's really neat. I feel like that's kind of like a defining character of your career in the indie space, but in mainstream too. But just like you're everywhere. Which
Well,
is
it's
kind of
funny
neat.
because I seem to be in a career renaissance right now. I've never been busier in my life, and I'm very surprised about it.
Oh, that's great.
Okay, I'm putting the link in the private chat, and I will send you the image.
All right. Do you have the impression that that might be because so much interest in comic books is leaving what was established by the big publishing houses and now going into this more Wild West territory of finding creators and stories and things of the like to support? Is that why your career might be going through a bit of a renaissance right now?
Just because
Well,
everything's
a
so
number of things
decentralized.
have come together. Well read. Where are you? Well read.
I'm right here.
Yeah, I'm looking for you on Twitter so I can give you this picture.
Oh,
Actually, if you hook that link on, all right, here it is. I'm going to put the cover in a letter to you on Twitter,
okay, great.
and there it is. It's a little blurry because it's low res, but you'll get the idea. That's it. Yeah.
Yep, this is the Nefarious book that you mentioned.
I almost have a cover to show you for Kelsey's, but he hasn't finished it yet.
Oh. Yeah, I remember I had a discussion with Kelsey about some Nexus work that he was doing, but I didn't hear anything.
Triplets. So the premise of Nexus triplets is there's these triplets that are psychic, so they immediately know what the other triplet thinks or
They're
sees.
telepathic,
Yeah.
and they can communicate instantaneously over interstellar distances, which makes them extremely valuable to commodities traders. Because if you're in a different star system, and all of a sudden you discover a new vein of Nixium, which is an element necessary for faster than light travel, and you can communicate that information instantaneously to Earth, then your cohorts can buy that stuff up. It's like insider training. And so this international or interstellar gang kidnaps the triplets and splits them up into 3 worlds separated by interstellar distances to do just that, to transmit economic information instantaneously.
Yeah.
Smart.
So
Yep.
so was that your idea or was that
Yeah.
Richard's idea? Oh, it was your
No,
idea.
that's
Because I
my
think
idea.
it was a quite a clever kind of little sci-fi twist. Because like if you know anything about science, even if you move something at light, it takes obviously many years if the distance are great enough. So it's like it had a good sci-fi premise to it.
Oh, well, thank you. Yeah, I like it, and yeah, I think it's some of my best Nexus stories. You've seen the first issue, uh, but I can't wait for him to get to the second or third. I don't know when that's going to be, uh, but it builds up and it ends with a bang. You'll laugh, you'll cry, you'll hurl.
I mean, the little short story you did for Richard, that was quite a gut punch. You kind of set it up and then it knocked you down. Even though it's like what 4 pages, 5 pages, it was rather short.
I think Richard
Mhm.
laid that out and gave me the art, and really it was his idea, and I just supplied the dialogue.
Well,
Oh
I mean,
wow.
I guess that was a good idea on his part
Yeah,
then.
it was. Yeah, I was very impressed with the art.
Oh, that's when that was I think Aaron Alfici and he colored himself on that because he
Yeah,
usually Richard gets someone else to color, but Aaron colored his own work, which is looked very nice.
beautiful job. Yeah, I'd love to work with him on something else. I may. Nexus.
Do you think with the breadth and the speed to which you work, particularly recently, these last few years in your renaissance, like do you is there like a trade-off? Like I'm just curious because I feel like it takes a particular kind of writer to be able to succeed in that kind of world where you're picking up projects from different genres with all different kinds of voices with different amounts already kind of written or conceived before you're brought in, like to have that kind of versatility, like what do you like about it, what do you not like
Well,
I'm curious about that.
one thing I'm doing, another job I can't really discuss, is I'm adapting a screenplay into a graphic novel. It's a science fiction screenplay. But when you adapt a written work, it's really a technical process, choosing what to show and what to say.
Hmm.
Uh, and that's something that I enjoy because I can do that in my sleep. And I don't mean that I don't slight it. I pay every bit of attention to it, and I make sure I do a good job. Anybody who's read my adaptations of Timothy Zahn's Star Wars novels knows that. And
Yep.
I'm involved in that kind of thing now, not just with the screenplay, but with a couple other projects I can't mention. And I enjoy that because they pay well, and I don't have to think, what happens next? Because that's the essential question in all fiction. What happens next? It's the most important question. If the reader doesn't care, he's not going to turn the page. And whenever I run into an issue or run out of steam, it's because I don't know what happens next. And when that happens, I push myself away from the keyboard. I take out a tablet and a pen. I start writing down everything that could possibly happen next, no matter how crazy. And sooner or later, you'll hit the path. But it seems to me, I don't know how this stuff gets done. It just seems to me I sit around all day scrolling through the web or sitting with my thumb up my ass, and yet the work does get done. I just stopped with my friend Peter Brandvold on the way back. Pete's the most popular Western writer in the world right now. He publishes 5 novels a year. He gets up and writes 2,000 words every day, sometimes more.
Wow.
And he just does it. Now, he has an advantage because he knows what happens next. And I envy him that. But the type of stories I write, they're often crazy, like Florida Man, and there's no clear path. There's no story arc there. The goal of the story is to make you laugh, and to do that, I have to maneuver Gary into the most ridiculous and untenable position. Because that's where humor comes from. It comes from absurdity, juxtapositions of absurdity, uh, and there's no lack of avenues for him, but it can't be too gross. Half those Florida Man stories I can't use because they're disgusting, and we don't want to show that. And I try to present Gary as a sympathetic character. I mean, he's got a hair-triggered temper. He likes to get high. He likes to get stoned. He's been in and out of trouble his whole life. DUI, failure to pay child support. but at heart, he's a great guy. He'd give you the shirt off his back. And I think that's the saving grace of the novel. When people read those, they identify with Gary. Gary's a great guy. I mean, he's hilarious. He's inappropriate, and he's not afraid to make a fool of himself. In fact, he's often unaware that he's making a fool of himself. But that's the story of Florida Man.
Did you have the same writing process early in your career? For example, when you worked on Punisher, which I think was your longest mainstream writing gig, what were you already set in your ways of how to approach storytelling, or were you still?
No. You know, my methods have changed drastically over the years. That's a funny thing though. But you know, back then I would just I'd get a premise, a concept, Punisher versus Jim Jones. I mean, that everybody remembers that story, the Rev, about the Reverend who took his flock down to South America and tried to poison them all.
Right.
And obviously, I ripped that right out of the newspaper. And what I would do in those days is I would draw each story out by hand, panel by panel. It's a very valuable exercise, and I recommend it to anybody who wants to do comics, whether you can draw or not, because it teaches you a lot of things. Most importantly, it teaches you to think about what happens next. Because I draw a panel, I put my characters in, I put my dialogue in, and then I'd say, well, where does this lead? Where does the story go? Is it compelling? Is it interesting? So I would proceed like an inchworm from panel to panel until I got all the way through the story. Now, in the back of my head, I had structure in mind. A story is a dynamic narrative with a beginning, a middle, and an end. And by dynamic, I mean events are in flux all the time, because if the hero was exactly where he wanted to be and he was content and all was right with the world, he wouldn't have a story. So things have to happen to nudge the hero off his dime and get him to take action. With the Punisher, that was easy because he was looking for trouble. And everywhere he looked, he saw trouble, and he dealt with it. I never used to outline, and now I do outline. And I don't draw these pages out by hand anymore. I do it with a script. But my scripts are very terse. Everybody loves the scripts. There's a description of what's going on. There's the dialogue, and anybody can follow them. And I think it's very important that the writer provide the dialogue initially and not do the Stan Lee method where he said, well, here's a fight scene, and then they talk, and then Jack would draw it out, and then Stan would figure out what they say afterwards, because you got to give the characters their lines so that the artist knows how to portray them. And that's part of, if it were film, it would be acting. Is the acting convincing? So the characters have to match the lines. But the characters are internally consistent, so it's pretty easy for the artist. And I often will peg an actor that I think as a way of shorthand, saying, this is Jack, and then in parentheses, Brad Pitt. So he knows the type of character to draw. And that doesn't mean he has to draw Brad Pitt exactly, but a Brad Pitt type or whatever.
So, and you also mentioned, you mentioned that you were blacklisted, I think you said, from the industry.
That's right.
Was it over, and I just want to quickly show it, this campaign over the police officers' thin blue line?
That didn't help, but it didn't hurt either.
Okay.
I mean, that was my most successful book so far. But yeah, we submitted that to every major publisher, and some of the responses we got were "fuck you," "fuck the police," etc. And we knew we were going to get these responses, and we did it on purpose so that we could use it to advertise. But in a larger sense, their responses were inexplicable to me. Because you're either for the rule of law or you're not. And civilization depends on the rule of law. And the reason I wrote this book is because 2 years ago, we were sitting at our TVs watching city after city go up in flames, people being murdered, and always some nitwit out front explaining that these were mostly peaceful protests. And then politicians, elected officials, started calling for defunding the police. And my first response was, you can't do that. Civilization depends on the rule of law. It just seemed insane to me. And so I wrote this story. And again, I must stress that there are no lectures. There are no screeds in here. It's solid drama from beginning to end. Ask anybody who's read it. They'll tell you it's one of the best books they've read all year, if not ever. I'm very excited about it. And we're working on a second one right now. As always, my goal was to entertain, but there was a point to it. It was pro-police. And to do a pro-police book in today's atmosphere was heterodox. It goes against the orthodoxy. It was unheard of. It was dangerous. So we got a lot of press from sympathetic people, and Fox News had me on their morning show to talk about it. They said, "What? You're doing a pro-police book?" And it was so unheard of. But that's the way I feel about it. And Punisher was pro-police too.
Well, yeah, he was formerly police. So,
that's why they changed the Punisher logo, right?
Well, I think they're
too many
embarrassed
cops
by the
liked-
character, and they're looking for a graceful way out.
Yeah.
is law enforcement close to you in any kind of personal way? Do you have family that's in law enforcement?
No, but since I'm doing this book, police officers have been reaching out to me from all over the country, thanking me. And I have to say that when my wife died of an overdose of OxyContin and vodka in 2006, the police who showed up were nothing but sympathetic and helpful. I also know a couple of police officers from my karate studio, and I've made some friends since then from police officers who live up and down the Front Range in Colorado. And the police officers I know joined the force to be a positive force in their community. I don't know any crooked cops or mean sons of bitches. I'm sure they're out there. I know they exist. And I can point to examples of them, but those aren't the cops I'm writing about.
Do you think FBI agents are very different than law enforcement in terms of their motivations and the kinds of people that join
the
there?
FBI agents we read about, those surrounding Mike Lindell and showing up at people's houses at 6 a.m. in the morning with 12 heavily armed SWAT soldiers, are not good people. But I don't think that they represent the majority of agents. And I understand that the majority of agents are appalled by what's happened to their agency and would like to come forward but fear reprisals. I don't know where it's going to end, but it's just monstrous what has happened to the FBI. It's monstrous what they're doing.
So when did the industry change, you think? Is there a time that you can mark on a calendar when there was this sea change from, a lot of people who still had, fairly grounded perspectives working in comics to these extreme radicals who now would demagogue you for writing police books?
Well, I don't know. It seemed to change gradually and then all at once. But, I very rarely read industry comics. Every now and then I'll pick one up and I just have my worst fears confirmed. They seem to have forgotten the number one rule, which is that their job to entertain is these comics don't entertain. It's like they don't know how to entertain. It's like these people go in with a big chip on their shoulder about some issue, and then the book is filled with a lecture about how you're a schmuck or something because you don't support this, that, or the other thing. And the action seems meaningless and poorly choreographed, and the characters are inconsistent. But there are exceptions to this, and the exceptions that I'm finding are all published outside the mainstream of comic books. Where's that one book? Oh, yeah. We're all crazy about this book.
Fiendish,
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm. We had Rini on.
Well drawn, different.
Yeah. We had a chance to talk to Rini, and she had very strong feelings as well about her experience in the mainstream. So,
yeah, and like Graham Nolan's been putting out books that are just fun comics for the whole family that have no axe to grind. They're just really well done, fun comics. And so I had a lot of guys, Aaron Lopresti's latest book,
Wraith of God.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's not only well drawn, it's well written too.
Yeah, we're looking forward to discussing that next week.
Are you having Aaron on?
We'd like to, certainly. If he'd be willing to join us, that'd be quite an honor and a privilege. So we'll see how it works out. Just have to make schedules align. But yeah, it sounds like a lot of people with more traditional viewpoints, though, are no longer welcome in the mainstream. Were you ever pressured to do propaganda while still working for any
No,
mainstream
no, I
comics?
wasn't, and I have no complaint about my treatment by either Marvel or DC. I fell out of the
That's
industry
good.
through nobody's fault but my own. I didn't understand how to sustain a career. And then I went through a period of about 10 years where I was out in the desert. I couldn't get any work at all. I worked as a janitor. And I ended up in Colorado because of my late wife. And after a long time, I started to write again. You know, I always wanted to write novels, but I just couldn't get the hang. But I always had a flair for comics. I just had this absolute confidence I could write comics, and I could. Uh, and I'm happy to say I think I'm making progress there. But then about 15 years ago, I started to write novels again, and something had happened, and I understood story. And when you understand story, you don't make a wrong turn. And I realized, holy shit, I see the story. You know, I understand what constitutes story. And there's what constitutes story, millions of things: plot, theme, character, dialogue, fancy narrative, voice, whatever. And you have to juggle all these things to create a compelling story. But once you understand it, you don't make a wrong turn. And as the young writers say, oh, is it any good? Oh, you read this, is it any good? But experienced writers don't. They know that what they've done is solid. And so they put it out there fearlessly. And I'm not just speaking of myself. I'm speaking of every one of my writer friends, every one of my professional writer friends.
Moonshine, did you have a question?
No.
Oh. Did your time, falling out of work and working as a janitor, did it give you perspective at all on your career and your craft? How did you take that
Well,
experience?
it did have an effect on my craft. As I said, I started outlining, and whereas before I had viewed outlining as a chore, I now embrace outlining as a pleasure, as part of the creative process. And the reason is I only write something down if it excites me. Sam Fuller, the great director who did Big Red One, among many other movies, he said, if it doesn't give you a hard on, throw it in the wastebasket. That was talking about story, of course.
Mhm.
And
Love it.
and there's some truth to that. You have to be excited about a story. I think every good writer has to entertain himself before he can entertain others. Now, certainly, I'm seeking as wide an audience as I can, but I have faith that my taste in story and what I like will appeal to others, and that's why I can do it.
And what do you look for to excite you in a story? Is it just very colorful characters, or is it also?
All those things. It can be the plot. You know, it could be a fascinating character. Sherlock Holmes. Sherlock Holmes is so fascinating. He's more popular now than ever. In fact, there are more Sherlock Holmes novels that are not written by help me out here.
Arthur Conan Doyle.
Thank you. Yes, then there were written by Conan Doyle. Another thing is a fascinating idea. Jurassic Park. We all love dinosaurs. Just the idea of cloning dinosaurs and creating a park, that's going to get people's hearts racing. Yeah, I want to see that. A third thing is a seductive narrative voice. A writer who writes in such a style that you're excited by his words. And I think of James Elroy is probably my favorite writer. He wrote L.A. Confidential and many other modern noir novels, and he writes like a machine gun. Nobody can imitate him. His short bursts of words. He went into the room, he pulled his gun, he shot the man, he left. And then at the other end of the spectrum, you have Michael Chabon, whose command of the language is so great that you read just fascinating by the lyricism of what he writes. And also, you're circling every other word because you're going to have to look it up. In Telegraph Avenue, he wrote a chapter that's 5,000 words long. It's about a parrot that escapes from an apartment, and it's all one sentence, and it doesn't flag. So these are just some of the elements that make for an exciting story. And you get them all together, you got dynamite, you got a classic, you know. I was looking at the work of William H. Hallahan earlier today. He's one of the great pulp writers of the 60s and 70s. He wrote, I'm going to have to look this up. Hang on, boys.
What was the spelling? Hallahan?
Yep, William Hallahan.
I have some images here of his novels.
Monk, Keeper of the Children is unforgettable novel. This kind of a mystic novel about this guru who takes children away from their families, and his control over them is complete, and the families can't get them back. And what the protagonist has to do to get them back is mystical, but it's credible. He also wrote The Search for Joseph Tully, one of the greatest scary novels of all time. What else did he write? The
like
Dead
that
of
cover.
Winter. Yeah. What are you looking at?
The
Oh,
Search
yeah.
for
Oh,
Joseph
yeah,
Tully.
yeah,
That's cool.
Yeah.
He also has the
Another
Dead
great
Winter.
pulp writer of the 60s and 70s is Herbert Lieberman. Herbert Lieberman is still alive, but his novels are unforgettable for the sense of dread. It's almost Poe-like, his sense of dread, except that he paints it in realistic details when he describes a city after dark, and you become afraid to turn the page, but you got to turn the page. Let's see. Herbert Lieberman.
Oh, I have it here. He wrote a book, Crawl Space.
That's one of them, yeah.
Yep. Very good.
City of the Dead, unforgettable. Oh, The Climate of Hell. That's about Joseph Mengele in Paraguay, and I recommend that one.
Oh wow.
And while we're on Mengele, there's a Charles Bronson movie called The Evil That Men Do, which is the same thing, with the Nazi doctor, and Bronson goes down there to because a woman hires him because the guy killed her father or something, and that's one of the great unsung Bronson movies. The Evil That Men Do.
Twitless has a question, Pat.
Yes. So he asks, what is an underrated comic that you wish you discovered sooner, and an overrated comic that wasted your time?
I always thought that Stray Bullets by David Lapham was greatly underrated, and because it's fascinating. It's like a car wreck; you can't look away. But they're grim. They are really grim, and David just writes about the seamy underside, but it's so realistic. You could swear it's happening in front of you. As far as overrated comics that wasted my time, are two issues of Captain America that I purchased. One was the first by Ta-Nehisi Coates, and the other was 3 years later, just to see if he'd learned anything.
Unfortunately,
I take it he didn't, huh?
Yes. He likely disappointed your expectations.
Well, I was like, he's no different from any other Marvel writer, except for the old guard, and that he has no idea how to entertain.
So it's not. That's a combo of not having the talent to entertain, and then also.
I think so. He doesn't have the chops to entertain. Doesn't understand story dynamics. Doesn't know.
And he's
how
an
to
ideologue, I guess, with his writing too.
That didn't shine through so much in Captain America. I think he was trying to control himself, but again, there was no story. It was just an amorphous mess with the Cap riding around and pretty descriptions of stuff. I just saw a movie called Revenge. It was written and directed by B.J. Novak, and I recommend it highly. Because it keeps upsetting your expectations. It keeps upsetting your expectations, turning them over and surprising you at every turn. And it's also laugh out loud funny.
I don't think I've heard of it.
Yeah, it just was just released. I just watched it the
Oh,
other
okay.
night. And I think he was a regular on The Office. And another movie I'd like to recommend is Let Him Go, starring Kevin Costner and Diane Lane, which is one of the most brutal and realistic thrillers I've ever seen.
Hmm.
I found Revenge. It's a female protagonist, correct?
Not this one. Here, let me
Oh,
show you this. I'll send you the movie poster.
there's also a Kevin Costner version that came out a long time ago.
Oh no, not the Kevin Costner movie I'm recommending is Let Him Go.
Okay.
Oh, we have to go to Rotten Potatoes here.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
that's a 2020 movie. Fairly recent. Yeah.
Revenge?
Let Him Go,
Oh yeah.
the Kevin Costner movie.
Revenge is so new; it's not even listed here.
Hmm.
That's crazy. Let's see. They know that. Here's Vengeance. I got the name wrong. Vengeance.
Oh, there we go. Okay. Yes. Oscar. Oh no. I thought it was Oscar Isaac for a minute, but you're right. It's the guy from The Office.
Yeah. Well, Let Him Go. You got to see that. It'll blow your mind.
Mike, do you think it's interesting that you pull a lot of inspiration from screenplays from these movies? Do you kind of think? I mean, obviously there's similarities and differences between comics and movies, but I do you think like a screenwriter when you're writing for comics? Are you
I hope
kind of
so.
thinking?
I hope
Yeah.
so. I don't pull inspiration from these movies. I'm really recommending them because they delighted me. I
Mhm.
try to avoid pulling inspiration from any identifiable popular work.
Sure.
You know,
Yeah.
I try to be original. And of course, they say there are only 7 plots in fiction. Uh, and that may be true. And I suppose we all use them from time to time. But other than that, I draw on my personal experience and what I know and what people I know. And then when you start writing something, uh, you have to send your character to a museum in Cincinnati. So you Google art museums in Cincinnati, and then you find the museum and you go to their website and you see what it looks like. And you see what works of art it has, and that affects the story too. It depends. Well, he was going to go look for a Rembrandt, but he ended up looking for a Hieronymus Bosch. And anybody who would choose to go to a Hieronymus Bosch exhibit, that says something about them. So you never know where the story's going to lead you. And the writer has to surprise himself before he can surprise the reader. So I open myself up to these surprises. And when I write something, I love to surprise myself. And it just depends on where the story takes me. Because this novel I wrote about the sea wolves, Matt gave me a very detailed outline of what he wanted, but a lot of it just had nothing to do with the story. And I used his characters and I used what he said and I set out, and it just led me to the most incredible places. And the themes that he wanted underlined stood out. I mean, it just rose naturally from the narrative. The themes were about honor, duty, sacrifice, responsibility, how to be a man, patriotism, things like that. These are the things that the sea wolves value, and that's what the novel was about. And I just found ways to draw that from everything that happened to the boys.
So those are all things that you've drawn from personal experience in your life.
Well, yes and no. I mean, you know, they say write what you know, and to a certain extent that's true. But at some point, you have to flex the old imagination. I mean, none of us have been to the moon. None of us have been to Ilam, so we have to imagine that. And a good writer can imagine every point of view. And the best writers imagine every point of view. I mean, like Shakespeare, he wrote Othello. he didn't think about cultural appropriation, but he wrote it in such a way that you understand Othello. And the same with the Merchant of Venice.
Hmm.
And the same with the Confessions of Nat Turner by William Styron. Or
That
Sophie
might be
Phillips.
that might be a good sci-fi novel, though.
Yeah.
Which
A Merchant of Venus.
the Merchant of Venus, I'm sure that's been used. Let me just check here.
Yeah, that sounds like an early 70s sci-fi book or something.
There you go. There's a new crowdfund coming up soon.
Yeah.
Well, apparently,
Oh, there's a whole series called The Merchant of Venus, Jane Lawless Mystery Series. Here's another one, Merchant of Venus, science fiction trading game box set. The Merchants of Venus by Frederick Pohl.
I'm just glad it's not a romance science fiction. At least it's a mystery science fiction.
Well, I'm sure there's romance in there. Ellen Hart. Oh, it looks, here, let me send this over to you well read. I'll put it in your message. It looks like there might be a little bodice ripper in it.
oh yes, right. Moonshine will enjoy those. It has all the themes that he enjoys. So let me just share that quickly. Were you professionally trained, Mike, at all? There you are. Merchant of Venus. Moonshine.
He is a writer.
Yes.
Well, I took some courses in college, and my first when I graduated from college, I heard there were newspapers in Boston who hired anybody who could write, and I had this unshakable conviction I could write. So I went there, but my first job was smoking dope for the government. I answered an ad in the back pages of the Boston Phoenix, seeking volunteers to live on a hospital ward for 30 days, smoke the government's dope, and take a battery of tests. It was just like college. And when I got out, I wrote it up and I sold it to the Boston Phoenix. So they hired me, and I eventually became music editor. And
Wait,
then
sorry.
Oh, wow.
yeah. And
What
then
year
I
was this?
newspapers and magazines.
What year was it where they were hiring dope smokers?
1971.
Okay.
Are you Hunter S. Thompson? This is very
Oh,
gonzo.
but I met Hunter Thompson in Boston. He was drunk as a skunk.
And then I wrote for Rolling Stone.
No, I never did.
You didn't smoke any dope with Hunter S, did you?
No.
How was he when you met him? Lucid
Drunk.
or drunk?
Oblivious, bumping into things.
I see. So not much conversation there
No.
to be had. I see. Well, so what dope did they give you, actually?
It was government-grown marijuana. It was grown on a farm in Mississippi, exactly 1.5% THC. Very scientific. Beautifully
Wow.
rolled joints.
And they were studying relaxation, or
They were studying the effects of marijuana on psychology, ability to reason, pulse rate, all sorts of things. We have these discussion sessions when we were high, and they'd have a psychologist there taking notes. And then there was one thing where they would test our memories and say, we're going to give you a series of numbers, and we want you to write them down backwards. And I have an old trick, a mnemonic trick, which is if they give you a series of numbers, you say them. 7, 8, 9, 6, 5, 5, 6, 9, 8, 7, and then you can repeat them backwards. And that's goes for a whole bunch of things. If there's something you want to remember, write it down. If you can't write it down, say it out loud.
yes, memory typically works on several levels: hearing, visual, audio, verbal, and mechanical by writing it. Very true. Well, I feel like we could have maybe touched on a few more topics a little bit deeper. I did want to ask, because you said you were blacklisted for other reasons other than the cop book. Was it just because of the experience you had where you weren't really sure about what direction you wanted your career to take?
No, it's because I'm a conservative.
Okay.
Hmm.
Was that overt? Did they
No,
Do
no.
they
This was after I
question?
fell out the ass end of the industry. When I approached him again about doing stuff, I just got the glad hand, and then I hear things. People have said things, uh, and I very carefully write them down and save them, but none I would care to repeat to you. Uh, but anyone who's familiar with the entertainment industry today knows that being a conservative in the arts is like being a Jew in Nazi Germany.
Mm.
And this,
You know, is this something that because people I mean, I completely I understand that this does happen, but how does it how do people even know your I guess you develop
I've
relationships with
made
these
no,
people over the years. So
no
you
made no
talk at
secret of the
bars and
fact that I'm a constitutional conservative. I'm
yeah.
not a firebrand. I don't engage in ad hominem attacks. I don't use sarcasm except among friends. But word gets out that I'm a conservative, that I embrace limited government. I think our government is way too big and takes on way too much. I think we're overtaxed.
Yeah. So these things, it just kind of comes out in conversations, I suppose, at cons and things, and then that somehow people trickle that up, I guess, and
Well,
act
I
like
don't
it's a
know how it
problem.
comes out, but if you go back and read my Punishers, uh, it's pretty
Mhm.
plain. I mean, I made Frank a devout Catholic, a guilt-ridden Catholic who goes to confession,
Hmm.
uh, and
it's
that's
a
a very
great,
conservative thing.
yeah, it's a great character trait actually for him. So giving the Punisher a conscience.
Hey, well, guys, I hate to wrap this up.
Sure.
Well, you've
Just
been very
quickly,
generous with your time. Yeah.
Well,
yeah,
thank you, and I'll be happy to return again. I'm not good for much more than an hour at a time.
absolutely, yeah. I have a devout fan in the back. He just wanted to ask one or two questions. Would it be okay if we held
Sure.
you for just 5 more minutes? Thank you.
Oh,
Hey,
say,
Turtles.
how's it going? Hey, Mike. Thanks for having me on. I'll keep it brief. Basically, I had two questions. One of them was more related. The other one was, I guess, more industry related. The industry related question kind of taps into what Matt C was just kind of asking. Did you find that when you started coming out more and more with some of your viewpoints, did people start viewing your work differently, or did things come out more that they'd already felt? What impression did you get?
Longtime friends, close friends, just cut me out of their lives without explanation. I didn't attack anyone. I just found out I was a conservative.
And then it was just like, blanket of silence.
Yeah, one of my best friends, a guy that I worked with for years. We stayed at each other's houses. We went on motorcycle rides together. Just stopped responding one day. So I went to his fan page on Facebook. And I said, has anyone heard from X lately? I've written him a dozen times. He hasn't responded. And the administrator wrote back, you figure it out. And then he blocked me.
Good Lord.
Wow.
And he didn't know you were a conservative throughout your entire friendship until
I guess not.
politics became heated.
Or it was a 2016 thing where suddenly the Overton window shifted. Is that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or maybe I think sometimes they suspect, because oftentimes it's there's almost this kind of I know that kind of a thing, and but as long as you don't overtly state your opinions in public, we can kind of have
That's
a
right.
détente.
Yeah,
But
and I have other friends who are very liberal, and they know I'm conservative. We just don't talk politics.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Sorry, second question to it. Let's Mike indicated he'd like to.
Yeah. So just really quick. So some of the characters you write kind of walk this very interesting tightrope between kind of obviously following, upholding order and disobeying the law, through the vigilante way. Characters like the Punisher, and even I noticed Miss Tree, which I have some of the old Eclipse comics of that.
Not guilty. Miss Tree, that's It's not my character. Oh, who's that writer? Famous writer. Well, never mind. But anyhow, Nexus certainly has those traits.
Sure. So I guess what I'm asking is that, how do you kind of thread the needle, right? Because one of the things that modern leftists often do with superheroes is they want to burn down the system. They want to defund the police, right? But like a character like the Punisher only exists because the police have in some way failed. So how do you write in through fiction? How do you thread that needle that still is able to, kind of recognize that those actions outside of the system are necessary while still not going so far as to overthrow it?
Oh, I think that you just depict the cops as human or overwhelmed, unless they're evil. And then you can depict cops as evil, because certainly there are evil cops. But the most important thing is keep it entertaining and show, don't tell. I remember going to the theater to see Death Wish when that came out, and people stood up and cheered. And that was in the 70s. And the same thing happened when Dirty Harry came out, because people felt that a lot of criminals were getting away with it, and they were excited to see a story in which the criminal gets his comeuppance. And of course, it's fiction, but both those stories were inspired by real situations. I mean, Dirty Harry was inspired by the Zodiac killer, whom they never caught. And Death Wish was just inspired by your random crime in the subways. And look at it today. Look at New York or San Francisco or Portland or Los Angeles or Minneapolis or Chicago or any one of those cities where crime is simply out of control. And they don't have the police forces to respond to 911 calls. Half the police force has quit. The other half has been fired because they didn't take the jab. And these were the very officials who are calling for defunding the police. And they say, well, it's out of our hands. We can't do anything about it. It's a situation they created, but they never take responsibility.
And I don't even think it's what the majority of constituents want.
No, of course not.
Yeah. I think they're just trying to appeal to the media and to social media. So
Right.
building a perception there. Well, Mike, so thank you again
You're
very
welcome.
much. It was great
Yeah.
talking with you, and hopefully
a
we
lot,
can do it
Mike.
again sometime.
Okay.
Very
happy to.
valuable time. Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
All right. Have a good night. Well,
What a
those,
guy.
yeah, very interesting life experiences. So,
I don't think we didn't get to ask too much about Saints, but it kind of, I mean, it was neat to just see, I mean, what he really is, which is a guy who probably has a new project every month he's working on,
yeah,
exploring that.
it sounded like the status for Saints is a bit up in the air.
Well, it was interesting. He said, "Oh yeah, it's done. Like his part of it's done." So
Yeah, at least it
there's a
is.
complete story that is finished that may come out at some point.
Well,
You
I
didn't
guess,
read the Saints, did you, Twitless?
I'm sorry.
You never read the Saints.
I saw the solicitation for it in Red Rooster. I have not had the chance to read it yet.
Good job.
yeah,
Hooray!
way to go, Twitless.
Thanks.
You ruined the stream again.
That's why I'm invited on. Someone's got to take you guys out.
For the big hurrah, we bring in Twitless.
That's what Elasmat says anyway.
Yeah.
Well, it'll be good to take a look at Blue Thin Line at some point, and maybe bring Mike back on for his experience writing that, what he used for reference material. So, and yeah, promoting that campaign, because he was right. Like it did gangbusters. Pretty successful. Had 1,800 backers and almost raised six figures. So.
The backer count is the most impressive thing. That's a large number of backers for a crowdfund.
Doesn't hurt to go on Fox and Friends.
Yeah. That was it was one of those like lightning rod comics with the issues. The whole pro police, anti police, especially during that time, was like,
Well, there is the thing to be said for rip straight from the headlines if you do it right.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, as Death Wish was at its time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Very true. All right. So I think Thursday we're gonna do Wraith of God, and we'll see who we have on afterwards for guests. But yeah, that's gonna be the next upcoming review, so people can look forward to that and tune in for that when it's due. Moonshine, Matt C, thank you very much both for your comments today.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a quality book. It was fun to talk about it and talk with Mike.
Well, I haven't seen anyone talk about it, so it kind of went
That's
under
true.
the radar and came and went.
I thought you guys were talking about Word Nerd Saints comic, and I've been completely misled and bamboozled.
Hayward Saints 8. I don't think that's out
Oh,
yet.
There was a preview of it in Bullet Maker, but I don't think it's out yet.
Yeah.
The rap god Word Nerd.
Yeah.
I still play that song, his rap occasionally. It's inspiring.
But it's like he pairs well with Moby's rap, if anyone remembers Moby.
No, I don't.
What?
yeah,
Just
we
like
remember.
lifting other people's rap?
Moby
Just
is
like sampling?
Moby is a very strong Preston Poulter supporter.
Is he really?
Yeah.
How does
What?
he even know about Preston Poulter?
Moby. You guys don't know who Moby is. I'm telling you who he is.
Well, we know who he
The
is.
Moby?
He's a musician.
No, not well, sort of.
What?
Are we talking about different people?
Yeah.
Moonshine, you're the only one who knows this punchline. You're going to have to explain.
I told you who he is. There's nothing else to say.
Like Moby, the guy who just he
remixes.
samples like black blues musicians and then puts like a electronic beat on it from the early 2000s.
No, I don't think we're thinking.
Oh, okay. I know who you're talking about.
Yeah.
Moby, who used to come on the stream. He used to be a member of the Preston Knights.
Yes.
Oh, the black guy. Oh,
Yeah. That guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mole. I think it was Moleby. Yeah.
Right.
He has a rap album of sorts. So
There's no way it can be better than Word Nerd's rap.
I don't know. I said they pair well together.
Okay.
Gosh. We have such bad drama nowadays. We have to like look back on mediocre.
There was
like,
one
mid-tier drama from
I didn't want to
2020.
drag it up, but I thought I saw something recently, and the problem was I couldn't pull up the Kiwi Farms thread to take a look at it. But I think someone specifically called out Mike Barron and said, "Oh, well, I handed Mike Barron a script once, and he turned in the worst thing I'd ever seen. So Comics Geek deserves it." It was some sort of like really bitter, backbiting kind of thing. So like I think there's been some current relevant drama that deals with Mike and Dale Keown specifically about I forget who it was.
It wasn't Mark Brooks.
It was not Brooks. It was someone else though who is kind of SJW and because a lot of the pros are, right?
Oh, it was that one guy maybe.
Yeah, exactly. It was that one guy.
He comes and goes.
But
mainstream troll who likes to make commentary.
I don't know who it is, but I remember someone else came in again.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, oh, that guy. I remember he used to be mad at Comicsgate back in 2017.
It's not Scott Kurtz, is it?
No, not him.
No, it wasn't Kurtz.
He's a whole separate case study.
Yeah. Yeah, when you said the Saints actually went under the radar, I was looking at how many reviews Wraith of God had. But there's not many for that book either. I feel like most of it.
I know the one that Ethan presented where it got the highest number of any book they rated, which is
right.
Kind of why I don't give numbers, because then you're just comparing it to all the other books. It's like, well, that's not exactly how you review a book, but okay.
I don't think numbers are very helpful, honestly, for a lot of reviewing metrics. It's kind of like a quick and dirty,
it's for video games. That's what you get. In movies, maybe, but it's it's 4 stars. You got 4 buckets for a movie review, and most best movie reviewers don't give numbers anymore.
Right. I was gonna say a real review is where you actually just dive into the you pick, you know, the main categories of how you would break that down, you know, plot, character, special effects, whatever, and then you just kind of like, you know, give an honest kind of analysis of those things that, you know, corresponds to standards for that particular piece of media, and then you let people come up with their own decisions, you know, because there's lots of reviews you could give for, like, you know, a romance film that would do, like, you know, that would imply that a certain audience or demographic would love that material, but another demographic would hate it. To simply slap a number on it that's like universal is kind of I think kind of a very flat and
Arbitrary.
arbitrary and ultimately not
7
very,
out of 10 would back
yeah,
again.
exactly. Yeah, it's not very useful.
5 out of 4 stars. Yeah.
A duck out of 10.
Yeah, exactly. No, it's better to speak about the merits of the book.
Right.
I at least try to. I think it can be helpful because if only if you can figure out as a reviewer what the book is trying to do, and then you just talk about how close it gets to that, you know. But even that can be.
But I think
trying to interpret.
Okay, Elasman, I said a duck, not one duck. Everyone misunderstood me. I literally was trying to make a non-numerical comparison by saying duck out of 10. Because I used the article A in front of that, everyone interpreted that as like, well, somehow that's a number again.
I think it's Beast Citizen out of 10 for this. That's offensive. That's why.
I know it is. I know it. Yeah, that's the real kicker right there.
I think Matt might be right, but I think that type of review is like the least useful because when you're reading the book, as Mike Barron said, the point is to get enjoyment and entertainment out of it. Who cares if a book is exactly what it's meant to be if you don't like it at that point?
That's fair. Yeah.
Like 499.
It's 499 out of 10.
Yes.
Never going to live that number down. Am I?
Oh man, classic.
Is this why I'm not allowed to review the books anymore?
No, that was actually good. You actually read it. Unlike like the X-Men books, you didn't even bother reading.
I did read them.
You didn't read any of the text, which is half the book.
I read them, but I didn't read the text. Okay.
Well, blame Jonathan Hickman for writing that way.
Well, I mean, I did read it. It was just you were referencing one panel that gave like some exposition, and I glossed over it and didn't catch a story detail.
Yeah, it's almost like you didn't read the book because that doesn't make sense. I'm talking about where he just puts a text and he explains things.
I see. Okay.
Not panels. I don't think you read X-Men at all. You just you read the wiki or something.
Oh, sure. That's what I did. I was reviewing the wiki.
Can we end this with Elasmat smiling maliciously?
In his car, maybe, while he runs someone over.
Yeah, there's like so many early 2021 things happening in our reminiscence.
Yeah, I kind of feel like when people give numbers, it's their shorthand way of giving an impression of a book. Because it takes a lot.
It's a summary of sorts, I suppose.
But it takes a lot to construct a criticism. And I don't know that
I like the way Matthew Fowler, he has like his list of things he rates, and he says, then I just average them all together, get a number.
Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, if you have a system.
Consistent. Yeah.
But he also...
Smug Pug gave Xenotype 7 out of 10, and it was a meme for an entire year afterwards.
Yeah.
Yeah.
7 out of 10 would back again.
Yes.
That's right.
Yeah, making giving Xenotype a decent review was the most controversial thing he could have done, I think.
Yeah, Preston Poulter was like, 7 out of 10, it's better than all the other CG books. It's like, but we haven't given any other numbers yet, so how do you know?
Yeah, everyone was upset with 7 out of 10. They wanted a 2 or a 10, which I guess is the point of criticizing these numbers, is that people just want their number confirmed, I guess.
Which is essentially, they don't even want a number. They want a thumbs up or thumbs down.
Yeah,
they want
people
a binary
are
review.
upset about that number, and they didn't care what was said in the review. So,
I do try to get the reviewers to give a thumbs up, thumbs down, at least, where I ask if they at least enjoyed the work or they would look forward to future issues. I think it's worthwhile in summary to at least say whether or not you felt like it was worthy of your purchase.
Mhm.
Twitless, do you think The Saints was worthy of you reading the ad in the back of another book?
I mean, I was actually hoping for an ad for Red Rooster 4 in the back of Red Rooster 3, so it was a little caught me off guard, if I'm being honest.
There's your summary, everyone.
He wanted Red Rooster 3.
4.
4. Okay.
The solicitation. So the way Red Rooster 3, because I got my first 3 copies I got from Walmart. Go to Walmart, kids, and get Red Rooster. So at the back of Red Rooster 3, it ends at a complete cliffhanger. And it's basically a setup for the main story. And I was expecting at the end of the 3rd issue for there to be a solicitation for coming up in Red Rooster number 4. But when you get to the end of Red Rooster 3, there is no solicitation for the next Red Rooster. It's just a solicitation for the Saints. And so it's like, you just kind of have to tune in for...
Interestingly enough, you might like this, Twitless. At the back of the Saints, there's a solicitation for all the other Allegiance Arts issue 4s. So.
Oh, really? Really?
There's a promo for you.
There we go. Is there a solicitation for Red Rooster 4 in the end of the Saints?
It's Red Rooster looking over his back, a black child holding his dog. Yes, there is a cover for issue 4.
Oh, cool. All right. Interesting. Okay. I didn't know that.
Yep. I guess maybe they will do Indiegogo campaign for 4 through 6 like they did in Horror Saga. I don't know.
I guess, yeah, we'll have to see. So I'm missing. There's a piece of Red Rooster content that I do not have.
Yep, you should have got the Saints. Yep.
I guess I'll have to go track it down.
I hope they keep doing this, because I don't know if 20K is not enough for a business of Allegiance Arts' size, but we all know 20K is enough to produce the next book. Just in terms of like raw. It's going to cover the taxes and the artist and Mike Barron's time, but with no overhead above that, I guess, really, to speak of. But so maybe we won't see more. But
Nora Saga 4 through 6 did raise over 60K though.
Yeah. Okay, so, 4 through 6. So that's again, I guess that's 20K a book. But yeah,
which is better than the Saints because that was 20K for 2 books. So.
That's true. It was 2 issues, technically, isn't it?
Yeah.
Maybe they cut it loose so that it can continue to produce, or they find a different way to continue to get it out, or just bite the bullet. I guess I don't know.
It's a bit of a shame, honestly. 10K per book, because it's written by Mike Barron. The art is great. The story and the premise are unique.
And we didn't cover it, but it's a quality book. It's not just a floppy. It's square bound. I think it's got a slight matte finish. So it's a nice book, like the Red Rooster book. But
I actually have an interesting story. I think that I think there's pieces that are coming together with some of the Allegiance Arts strategies, but there's pieces that might still need to be enacted. I think it was today. I was actually at Walmart again. I don't go to Walmart. I go to Walmart like once a year. So I have these Walmart stories and I never go. But I've been to 2 Walmarts and I have found Allegiance Arts, the standee, twice. Both times I found it, it felt like it was by luck. Even though I knew, kind of like what I wanted to find, it always felt like I was lucky when I found it. And the standee this time today was it was in the electronics section right next to the like Xbox and PlayStation games. 2 aisles away was the book section, and what was really cool about interesting about this time was there was actually kids and and parents who were in the book section, and the kids were like running around grabbing like books, and the parents were like, oh, go grab some books, kids. And I was like, oh man, this is exactly if we could just move that standee, a couple aisles back, the kids could run and stumble and find, what I mean? Like, because they were selling they were selling Lore Olympus on that aisle. They were selling, a solo leveling. They were selling a bunch of stuff that the art of Allegiance Arts looks, it's completely at home with. Nora's Saga, I think belongs on the same shelf right next to Lore Olympus. And I feel like you could basically buy either and kind of get exactly kind of what you're looking for. And so I was like, getting into Walmart is one thing, but I think getting into the right spot in a place like that is really important. And I think that that itself has probably caused a chunk of issues, because just being like 50 feet away from where you need to be, I think could cause. I literally watched it happen firsthand. Like here's exactly here's the potential customers, and they didn't see Allegiance Arts because the standee was 50 feet away from where it needed to be, and it was a very interesting thing to observe. Oh, I go to Target.
No, he said there's an accent on the E. You only go to Target.
Target, yeah, it's true because I'm bourgeoisie. But I wanted to see what the poor illiterate masses do, the proletariat, the unwashed masses, what their experience is like, and so I observed.
I'm picturing Twitless with one of those hats with the leaves stuck in it, and he's got binoculars out, and he's watching the Walmart customers.
I imagine him with like a cigarette holder that's, sticking all the way out of his
Day
mouth.
22, the kids have still not found the Allegiance Art books.
Anyway,
Jay Dalla says you're the most exciting man on the street.
Oh, those are strong words, ESG Lord.
ESG Lord.
Yeah. All right. Well, I have studying to get back to, unfortunately.
Oh, wait, I guess Jay Dollar has seen you in Walmart.
Okay.
I guess you're in all the Walmarts. Go to Walmart, find Twitless.
Yes, I'm in the back corner with my hipster glasses, observing the proletariat masses buying Buzz Lightyear books.
Are you the one who's like throwing all the stuff on the floor at Walmart and making sure all the shelves are disorganized?
No, Twitless is the one that reorganizes the shelves, but still confuses everyone from that.
Well, it makes sense. My ordering system makes sense to me, so that's the only important thing.
Twitless is carrying the Allegiance Arts standee over to where it's supposed to be. It's like, leave
Yeah,
it
right.
here.
Sir, I'm gonna move the merchandise displays. Oh, Twitless,
I probably could have gotten away with it too if the thing weren't like
If it wasn't for those damn kids, yeah.
Yeah, right, exactly.
You're the
It wasn't
hero we
bolted.
deserve, Twitless.
Yeah, would anyone have noticed or cared if you had just moved that standee 50 feet?
So it
That
was
would've
one of
been
the
interesting.
ones that I think was like locked into the shelf. You know what I mean?
Oh,
So
yeah.
like I don't know if I could have gotten away with that. If it were like a movable one, like because of the freestanding ones,
Mhm.
I probably could have gotten away with it.
Yeah, be the change.
Yeah, exactly.
Twitless is such a Karen. When he shops, he says, "I want to speak to your manager."
Oh no,
Have
I'm
you?
the one who pulls up the Yelp review.
Ah,
I'm more of that.
Oh, you're the asshole who gets
Okay.
later. Yeah, okay.
yeah. I feel like this is an attempt to keep me away from my studies, so I
Yes.
do have to wrap this up.
All right.
5 more hours.
Yep.
Well, Red, be like Finatra.
No, I can't be like Finatra. Finatra's
Oh,
a machine,
gosh.
streaming machine.
He's still recovering, I think, from that.
He did a 12-hour stream recently. I don't think I saw that.
Oh, you didn't? Last Sunday. That was the Ethan versus
Oh yeah,
Matthew
I saw-
Fowler.
Yeah, I saw that
Extravaganza.
little bit. Right.
Wait, he had Ethan and Matthew Fowler on?
Oh, it
yeah,
was
they
fantastic.
argued. Yeah, they
Oh,
argued about
I gotta go
Liamology.
back and watch that.
They
Oh, was
they
that-
argued over the body of Liam Gray.
Hmm.
Is that a
Oh,
new one? Okay,
twice.
I saw the one where he he went at TJ pretty hard.
Yeah, there was some of that too.
Oh, that was the same one. Okay, the one where he said,
Yeah.
I want to slap your
I
father."
think Ethan had
Yeah.
TJ on his own show to argue about something.
I missed that.
But
Well-
the chat was not happy with TJ. I can tell you that.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. Sorry,
Well,
we're not making this as interesting as an unzipped, but I don't think you have time for an unzipped. So.
Yeah, I encourage everybody to go watch those streams and get their thrills. Jay Dollar says that gay laugh makes me want to kill myself.
I'll just
again.
do it all the more then, buddy. just for you.
I
Do it
feel like
again,
that-
Willis.
All right, with that, have a
Willis,
good
you're
night.
supposed to laugh there so someone could clip it and annoy people with it.
Have a good night, everybody. We'll see you on Thursday for the next review. Thank you for watching.
See y'all.